I'm Senator Adam Hollier, and this is the We Can Do Better podcast. I am really excited about today's guest. And with everything going on in the world, I think social movement has been important as we've been talking about mobilizing and engaging. There has been a greater push for folks to exist outside of the system. But it's really important to remember that there are people who have dedicated their lives to working inside the system to take care of people and move and ensure that people's rights are protected. And so as we talk about attorneys, people are typically thinking about the person who you call when you get into a car accident or some of those kind of things. But we have really incredible and talented attorneys, Nancy and Rubina, who will explain some of the work that they're doing and how you may be able to take advantage of the services that they provide, which are critical and important to ensuring that the justice system works, not just for the wealthy, but the people who actually need justice. So Nancy, if you want to kind of explain what you all do and introduce your colleague.
Yes, very much so. So thank you very much, Adam. Thank you for allowing us on and giving us this space. My name is Nancy Parker. I am a staff attorney at the Detroit Justice Center, DJC for short. And at DJC, who we are a nonprofit law firm that works alongside communities to create economic opportunities, transform the legal system, and promote equitable and just cities. That is basically our overall goal. However, we break it down into different practice groups in different areas. I am a staff attorney in the legal services and advocacy practice. And it's a lot of words, but I'd like to sum it up by saying I am a lawyer for the people. And as Adam stated, we are working towards social justice. And so everything I do, I call myself a movement lawyer. And so with Rubina and everyone else on our team, we are movement lawyers. We are all working with the movement for racial justice, economic justice, social justice in general. So everything we do has that greater goal in mind. And specifically in the legal services and advocacy practice, LSAP for short, we work to remove legal barriers like Detroiters who are faced with warrants, suspended driver's license, crushing criminal legal debt after either being pulled over so many times and you have fines and fees that you can't afford, or maybe you were formerly incarcerated and upon your release, you have crushing child support debt that you can't afford to pay. We assist families and clients to keep them out of jail, to allow them to maintain their jobs and their housing and keep families intact. We work in different areas. So we have a criminal justice reform where you see things like the new legislation that's going to be enacted on October 1st that has a lot of good things. It still needs some work, but folks will, for the most part, know your driver's license won't be suspended for failing to pay some fines. Hopefully, if you get encountered with the police and it's a low-level misdemeanor offense, they can give you a citation as opposed to a warrant. And so that's part of criminal justice reform that we work to advocate for changes to help just better people's lives. We also engage in housing and eviction work. We engage with the community. So again, we take our cues from the movement. And right now, everyone knows Black Lives Matter is hot. That's what everyone is saying, right? And it's cool that it's in vogue, but where are folks actually doing the work? Where are people actually taking to the streets? And so here in Detroit, over the last summer and continuing on, we saw a lot of protests. Unfortunately, DPD met those peaceful protesters with violence. And so a lot of them were also just arrested for being there. At DJC, we're part of the Detroit Coordinated Defense Coalition, where we represent protesters. Everything we do is pro bono. We're also part of some affirmative litigation. We know that there is a current lawsuit where those protesters and the Detroit Will Breathe organization, they're suing, a bunch of folks. And so we're working on that litigation. We're also trying to bring some other lawsuits where we can stop these practices from a systemic level. Everyone has an anecdotal story about their brother, their cousin who got pulled over for just being Black. But how do we stop that on a greater systemic level. And that's really everything that we do at DJC. We do represent clients individually, but we look to make systemic change because we don't want to just keep putting a Band-Aid over a broken system. We want to actually tear the system down and then build something better in its place. And with that, I want to turn it over to my colleague to explain a little bit more of the other practice areas we have at DJC. So Rubina Mustafa is a senior staff attorney, also in our legal services and advocacy practice. And she's going to tell you a little bit more about all the other things that we do. We have CLEs, we have an economic equity practice, and Rubina is going to get into that for you.
Yes, thank you, Nancy. And isn't Nancy amazing? I mean, she has only been with us since just before the pandemic, but she is, I truly value her as a colleague. She's amazing, and really beautifully explained what our team does. But as Nancy said, we have more teams that work to sort of build a holistic approach to systemic change. Our executive director, the amazing Amanda Alexander, likes to call it defense, offense, and dreaming. So legal services and advocacy are about, as Nancy said, breaking that pattern of systemic racism and systemic injustice. The offense part is what is embodied in our economic equity practice. And Eric Williams, who is our senior staff attorney in that group, leads a really dynamic set of projects. One, helping people start their own businesses, working with and I'm going to screw up the name, but there's a collaborative of business incubators in the working with the Northwest Activity Center that had a grant, and they worked with people who are building their businesses to start their businesses and launch. And so creating economic opportunity, but also creating community services like gardening and natural foods cafe and holistic beauty supply, as well as the concept of, thinking about housing in a different way, like community land trusts, which we are developing. Eric's team is actually developing some community land trusts in the city to where the person isn't looking at a traditional bank mortgage or a landlord-tenant relationship. The property is theirs, they own the building, but the land is owned by the nonprofit or the neighborhood, and they're secured in their housing. They're not going to be, the contributions to the land trust go to pay property taxes and things like that. So it's a different way of looking at home ownership and housing that isn't taking from the community, but building it up. And Eric can explain the structure much better than I can, but it's a really innovative concept that we're proud to say we are innovating in the city of Detroit.
And so you do a lot of children's work, and I think in this moment, there's a lot of discussion about how we take care of children, especially during the pandemic, as a number of the mandatory reporters have not been able to engage with kids. And as you talk about systemic fixes and changes, what are you seeing on the ground? What are you working on? What's that look like from your perspective?
So we've done a lot of advocacy since the pandemic started. One of the big things was definitely on housing. Our colleague, Joe McGuire, is very active in the housing rights organizations. And one of the big things was making sure before there was a CDC moratorium, we had a moratorium in Michigan. And Joe, along with other housing organizations, was able to get a moratorium on evictions, at least for a couple of months. I think originally it was like 60 to 90 days. And that was huge because we were looking at a lot of families who would be facing eviction because people lost their jobs and they didn't have money. And so that was a really huge part of our pandemic advocacy. We also participated as Nancy said, we were part of the coalition that defended protesters, but we also were part of a coalition that worked to get people out of jails, because anybody in the jail was also going to be subject to being infected. And as we worked with Michigan Liberation, which is one of our movement partners, and we worked with them and the Bail Project to try to get people bailed out, to get their bail lowered, working with defense attorneys. And we were also part of a lawsuit joined with some other organizations that against the jail to make sure they were releasing people who are medically vulnerable, as well as addressing safe COVID-19 practices within the jail. In fact, without our advocacy, there wouldn't have been testing. There was actually no testing of people in the jail for COVID-19 and fully until June of last year. And as you know, there was a shutdown in March, so it took a while for them to do it. But I do applaud my colleagues and colleagues who joined with us for that advocacy. So we get very much boots on the ground, and we get a lot of our cues, as Nancy said, from the organizations we work with, like Detroit Eviction Defense, Michigan Liberation, Moratorium Now, Detroit Action Commonwealth. We see one of the parts of movement lawyering is that you really see your grassroots organizations as your partners. We don't have a traditional law practice that you see in other organizations. We see ourselves in partnership with people who are knocking on doors, are talking to people who know the real life stories, and we want to lift their work up so that it will result in change. Amanda was also, which you're probably very familiar with, Adam, is the pretrial and jail task force last year. Yes. And they had all the public hearings in 2019 before the pandemic, but a lot of the work about getting those reform bills passed occurred last year. So we were really excited to be part of that, and of course appreciated your support, as well as other Democrats in the legislature that really pushed that. But I have to say, we were impressed that there was a bipartisan collaboration on that. And we think it's really groundbreaking legislation that, like Nancy says, it does solve a lot of problems. It'll hopefully reduce people in jails, allow people to get their life on track. We definitely have a long list of more work to do, as I'm sure you do as well.
Let me just kind of step in. So as you say, reduce the number of people. That is because we incarcerate too many people, not because we're just letting people out, right? That's the point that you're making, is there are a number of people incarcerated who would otherwise should not be. And those are the folks who that work was targeting and helping to get released early. I don't want anybody to be confused thinking that you're just like, hey, no more jail, just going home.
So Adam, let me jump in there. So in our society, we have a false way of looking at things. It's a very binary view. So folks think that people are either all good or they're all bad. And the way
I'm all good, for the record. Just sunshine and light, rain.
I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are.
Don't ask my wife or my daughter.
Or the kids, right? You can do no wrong.
AJ still thinks I'm all good. He's 9 months old. Daddy's got, he says two words. He says daddy and he says AJ. So I think I'm still all good at home.
Absolutely. From the mouths of babes, literally.
I know, right?
That's how you want to keep it, right? That's how everyone wants to keep it, right? We aspire to be all good. We want to be all good. But the reality of society and life is that people are flawed. We have our pros and our cons, just like every human being, right? And so, but with that mentality, with that binary mentality that's instilled in us, literally since the day you first go to school, be good, be good, be good, don't be bad. It makes people feel and think that, okay, if someone's in jail, if someone's in prison, if someone's incarcerated, they must be a bad person. And therefore they deserve to be there because they did something bad and I did not. And what we try to do at DJC is kind of dispel that. So going off of what you just asked to kind of drill down, a lot of folks are in jails and are criminalized for offenses because our state, our society says this thing is criminal. So there may not necessarily be a harm behind it. We see in our traffic cases that we do a lot of, there really is no public safety agenda that you get from pulling someone over because they have an air freshener dangling from their rearview mirror. Like, what public safety did you stop or prevent in that time? You did nothing but hound the citizen who was trying to get along their way. And a lot of people don't know that a lot of these things have been criminalized. And so if it never affects you, because most likely either your economic status or the color of your skin, you don't know that this thing is something that's happening, that's widespread, is pervasive, that needs to be attacked. And so, yeah, the jails are filled with low-level offenses, majority traffic. Half of the prosecutions in Michigan was because of traffic offenses. I'm not talking.
Wait. Stop. You said half of the prosecutions in the state are traffic violations?
Yes, that's right. Rubina, you are well versed in all the stats. I don't know, do you want to break it down for Adam here?
Well, are they speeding? Because, people be on the lodge going real fast. No, I'm being silly now, but.
Well, no, but the thing is, but you point out something. Somebody could get a speeding ticket and not be able to afford to pay it. Now, prior to these laws that change effective October 1st, if you weren't able to afford to pay the speeding ticket or you didn't go to court, your license would be suspended. Immediately upon that suspension, now you're a quote unquote criminal, and your only crime was you were too poor to pay a speeding ticket. Right. So what Nancy says is correct, and it's supported by research that was done by Vera Institute of Justice and the Pew Research.
By the who?
Vera, V-E-R-A, Vera Institute of Justice.
Okay.
They did a lot of the research. They did deep down research of jail populations during the task force, when the task force was working, and those are the numbers they found. More than half of the jail population and prosecutions centered around traffic, which are local prosecutions done in the district courts. So, and it's because things like driving while license suspended prior to this law change was a criminal offense. And so what we're looking at is, and what we advocated for, and we even wrote a white paper. Our white paper is called Highway Robbery, and it's available to read on our website.
Which is what?
DetroitJustice.org.
And we get what research paper at DetroitJustice.org?
Highway Robbery is the name of our white paper.
That's a good title.
I give credit to our colleagues, Aaron, Keith, Jeff Leonard, and Jay Chowning, who were we all contributed, but they were the major authors of the paper. And and so we did a breakdown in the paper, you'll see the history of sort of the segregation of the suburbs in the city. You see the breakdown of how district courts are making their money, and they're making it off policing on these traffic offenses. And a lot of the policing, now Nancy actually alluded to the dangling air freshener, but it could be a broken taillight. It could be, defective blinkers, things that a poor person is more likely to not be able to fix. So, we think that this legislation is just common sense. If somebody's too poor to, get their bumper fixed or whatever, why give them more money that they have to spend for the court so they can't get it fixed? And even though those were things you could get fixed and get waived, it was just, there was a lot of things that just sort of, there was a domino effect. If you were too poor for this, you're going to be too poor for that.
And to that point, you've talked about the legislative changes, so that in October 1st coming up, these things will go away. What does that mean for someone who already has an issue, right? So has a ticket, already can't afford to get their tail light fixed. Is it still, October 1st, are they still going to get a ticket, or is it just going to be less of a ticket, or is, what's going to happen then?
Right. So the idea, all of these changes have been gradual. So what should happen is, and we will leave it to our able Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, but the Secretary of State will be looking at all of the people on the rolls that had their license suspended. And for cases where they were suspended for things like that are no longer, you know, they have no safety related, they can have their license unsuspended, get their license reinstated. It doesn't mean the court cases go away. They still have to address the court cases. But the idea is that their license, they will be notified by the Secretary of State. They still have to go through the Secretary of State to get their license reinstated, but they should be notified that their license is getting reinstated. We are actually going to be talking to the Secretary of State to find out how that notification process is going. They have let us know that they're working on it. But it should provide relief to a number of people who, and as you know, Adam, I mean, the driver's responsibility fees up until 2018 also kept people from just getting over that hump. So hopefully this will open those doors to where they're notified by the Secretary, that a person who is eligible will get a notification from the Secretary of State that their license is no longer suspended, that they must go to the Secretary of State to get it reinstated, and then they can drive legally. But the court cases don't go away, but hopefully, and we're trying to also reach out to the courts that will talk to us to see if they're willing to work with people to reduce fines and fees, dismiss fines and fees. But we also, you know, are also advocating for hopefully more changes in the law, which I know there's some proposed legislation, you know, trying to help with that.
So the thing that, you know, is also prescient in the space, as you talk about systemic change and the impacts of our systems, is these driving fees are one piece, but if they're suspending your license, is your license still valid during that time? Are they taking your license, or are they just saying you can't drive? Because, you know, as we talk about strict voter ID laws and things like that, it becomes an increasing burden on people, particularly people of color and, you know, poor people and things like that.
So Adam, so they don't take your license, but I think Rubina touched on before how it creates a cycle, right? So if you get dinged and you're currently now have a driving while license suspended because you didn't pay your fines and fees, or you had a failure to appear in court, and now your license has been suspended, guess what, Adam? You still have that 9-month-old. You still have your 3.5-year-old. You still have to get to work. So what are you going to do? You're going to drive. And then what happens when you get profiled again, or you get pulled over for a non-public safety reason? You get hit with another driving while license suspended ticket on top of whatever they have pulled you over for. So it becomes mounting, crushing debt when you're criminalizing people because they're poor. That's simply it. There is no other excuse except this person cannot pay these fines and fees, and we're going to continue to ding them and trap them in this cycle where we are profiting off of their backs. Now, Adam, I would like to push you a little bit because you quickly wanted to put your listeners at ease and say, okay, these folks here who are fighting for justice are fighting for the low-level guys, the folks who aren't that bad. But I want to let you know that at DJC, we fight for every single incarcerated person, everyone who's formerly incarcerated, everyone who is part of a community who has been ravaged by incarceration and policing, and who may not themselves be have been behind bars. Because again, I go back to the dichotomy of good and bad, murderers and killers, and those of us are good people. What is the root cause? When folks are scared, when you say, oh, they're not just releasing everyone out, what are you scared of? Can we pinpoint what is your safety concern? What is the community relationship that you're trying to keep intact? And we at DJC focus on the community intentionally because we want to build up good communities. We want to make it so that your brother, your uncle, your next door neighbor isn't being pulled out of your community and sent to jail and prison for whatever the reason may be. If they did commit what is considered a either serious offense or violent offense, why? What was the root cause? Did they go rob because they didn't have any money to pay their rent, their mortgage? Did they engage in some violent behavior because they felt like they have to protect their property, or someone offended their family? and they had to, defend themselves. What is the root cause that's causing people to engage in harm? And that is what we focus as a kind of abolitionist perspective, as restorative justice. We're not practitioners ourselves, but that's the model that we hold. We work with in our Just Cities lab. We have created a Metro Detroit restorative justice network, where it's like, if there is a harm that has been done, can we sit people down? Can we get a circle and find out why it happened? Can we transform folks so that they leave this space in a better place so that it doesn't happen again? And that is our dreaming aspect at DJC, where in our Just Cities lab, we literally listen to the people, we listen to the community. And what are your freedom dreams? What do you want to see?
Nancy, you need to explain what the Just Cities Lab is and what restorative justice is for folks, so that we don't get too far down the road before people understand what you're talking about with both pieces, right? So our current criminal justice system, by and large, is meant to punish and separate, right? Absolutely. So you have done something wrong, you are on timeout, and timeout is a punishment. And the place that you are on timeout should be uncomfortable. And by and large part, our society views that it should not make you better or provide you with opportunities to be better because you are on timeout, and timeout is a punishment. You are not meant to go away and become better and fix whatever it is that you were done, unless it is by monetary gain, right? So as a society, we are like, you did the wrong thing. It is very acceptable for you to pay monetary restitution. But the idea of restorative justice, I think, shifts that dichotomy a bit from, hey, you did this thing and it was wrong to society, to you harmed an individual, you harmed a family, you harmed a community, a neighborhood. You did this thing, and we should be trying to figure out a way to provide the most relief to the people who were aggrieved by your actions.
Yes, Adam. So you've hit on so many things, and language is important. And I apologize for not defining terms as I was speaking, but you hear me.
That's okay. That's your judge. You're like, this is my thing. You got to get all into it. I'm
so excited. I'm overcome with emotion right now. But so language is important, and you will not hear me say, as you just referred to, our criminal justice system, because there is no justice. As you described it, it is a criminal punishment system or criminal legal system. The sole purpose is punitive justice, is to punish you. Now just think about that as a lay person. We are going to send you to a place that we know is vile and just rampant with harm, and we're going to punish you. And then when you get out, we're not going to give you any tools to be a better citizen. We just want you to now go back into the society more harmed than when you went in. And this is the framework that we have. We are sending people to be punished. And even as you said, pay money. It's never how can you make this person whole that you harmed? It's, we're going to punish you and we're going to strip you of your livelihood. And that is what our society has hung its hat on for centuries. And so when we say restorative justice, we want to center harm. We want to center the people who were affected. And it sounds crazy that this is some far out thing that I'm explaining to your listeners, when this is common sense. When our children cause harm in preschool and when they're young, we say, okay, go talk to Jane and Susie and listen to them. How did that make you feel? Okay, now apologize. Say you won't do it again.
That is not what we do. We say, hey, little Johnny, you are kicked out of class for the next 2 weeks. Like, I mean, it's mostly Black people, so it'd probably be like, Azarel, you are put out for the next 2 days.
Whatever it is. You're correct. Yeah. You're correct. That's how the school, and then that's how we get the school to prison pipeline. And so in our homes, what I'm talking about.
Wait. Are you telling me that there is a pipeline between school and prison? There is a connection? Imagine
that. Zero tolerance. If you throw a chair, if you get in a fight. Back in the day when I grew up, and I might be showing my age, but we did not have police in schools. We sat down, we got sent to the principal's office.
Where'd you go to school?
They called your mom. I'm not from Detroit. I'm from the Toledo area, so
okay. I was like, I mean,
but this is how it should be. There has been a change where we saw Black and brown children specifically as criminals. So your youth gets thrown out the window. Whereas if you are in a all white prep school, they will handle you differently. But now we see it start from very young. You're very right. And what we are trying to do at DJC is instill these practices from way back that we used to engage with people. We don't just throw people away. And that's what our current system does. And so whether you've done something very bad, we want you back in. We want you as a whole person. What do we need to do to rebuild relationships? And so restorative justice, transformative justice, these are new practices that people are really starting to employ and say, okay, we're noticing that the cycle isn't working. So can we sit down? Can we have a circle? Can we talk? Can we now have a concrete way that you, this person who you harmed, feels that you can make this right? So you can now shake hands so that I'm not throwing you away and then your people are going to come after my people and we have this cycle. And so I just want to push everyone, even as we discipline our children ourselves and as we engage with others, be mindful of the lasting impact that we're teaching the people so that it gets ingrained in their mind. If you make one wrong mistake or a bad judgment call, you're a bad person. I don't forgive you. We're going to throw you away forever. When in actuality, I just need you to take accountability for your actions. And our current system doesn't do that.
Nancy, can I jump in here?
Yes, please.
Finish with your sentence. So, no.
And I was just going to end always plugging DJC that in the Just Cities Lab, in terms of dreaming, what we're doing is we go to communities and we ask them, okay, we want to pivot from this punitive response. You tell us what are alternative modes of safety, accountability, and community reinvestment that you want to see. And that's where I'll leave it there. So Rubina can jump in.
Well, and where I want to pick up, because that's a perfect way to do it, is I want to invite your listeners to think about ways that they can ask for accountability, ask for reinvestment in community services. Because a lot of times people ask us, well, what can we do? I mean, you're doing great work. What can I, as the ordinary citizen, do? And you know, you can pick a lane. You can say, I'm going to talk to my legislator about, well, I really care about students getting an education and not just being criminalized. I really care about mental health. You know, what can we do to make those programs happen? Or you can join organizations, you know, that, you know, are advocating for that work. There's Detroit Disability Power. There's Michigan Liberation, there's 4824, there's Detroit Action Commonwealth. There's a lot of organizations that we work with that they can reach out to and say, you know, how can I participate in advocating for, you know, better, stronger communities? There's a lot of grassroots activism on the ground. And they should be asking questions. You know, we have also partners that are interested in accountability, like an organization like Accountability for Dearborn and Livonia Caring for Black Citizens, and you know, that are asking for accountability of their local police department, and they're, you know, saying, what are you doing? You know, are you targeting? Is there racial profiling going on? They've actually submitted FOIA requests to try to get that information and codify it. So, I mean, the reality is that we have to ask questions as citizens, like, what are we doing? What are we using our government dollars for? Are we building up the community, or are we tearing it down? And it's really important that we all ask these questions. We're not just throwing out buzzwords like systemic racism and racial profiling. We're actually documenting, look, this is the disparate impact that's having. This is, you know, you're making poor communities poorer. You're making children who are already living marginalized with only one parent, with no parents. You are, you know, depriving, you know, educational resources and mental health resources from the community. Let's ask those tough questions and ask for a better system. I think the conversation among leaders is there, but, you know, we all have to engage. And I think people want to engage. Sometimes they just don't know how. And they can certainly even, you know, contact our organization. We have a newsletter that comes out fairly regularly that tells people kind of what's going on in the community as well.
And
So,
Rubina, how do you subscribe to the newsletter?
Again, DetroitJustice.org. And there's a contest.
DetroitJustice.org, one word, right?
Right.
Yep, all one word, and there they can enter in their email addresses to get our newsletter. We have a great department.
And you won't spam them. You're just going to give them that good information about how they can get engaged and understand what's going on, right?
Yes. And we have a Twitter, and we have other social media,
Instagram.
Yeah.
All the hip
cool social media conscious.
I think the hip cool thing is the TikTok. Are you guys making legal dance videos?
So we have a podcast that's coming out. We have a podcast that's coming out called Freedom Dreams. So all of that's accessible on our website. But we try to sort of give the big, like the overall picture. So there's a part for everyone to play. Also, like I was talking about the economic equity practices, you'll get information about, the businesses we're trying to support, and things like that. So, it's really, I think Amanda has this really huge vision, which is wonderful. Like, let's build up the community and not tear down the community. Let's all
wait. You want to, in fact, build up the community and not tear it down with oppressive rules and regulations, and like over policing and like disinvestment. I don't think that's a very novel concept. Like, are you sure that's the angle you all want to take, is being proactive and
radical
building?
Yeah. If I may,
Nancy started with "you're radical," so I believe that.
Yes, if I may, I just want to plug one thing, because folks always say, what about the children? And the children are our future, right? Children are always like the mantra. If you want to think of the most pure, innocent victim, it's always a child, right? And at DJC, we look at it from a holistic perspective. So when you see a Black man driving, he may have a child, and that child will be impacted if you throw him into jail because of an unpaid ticket. So I think you asked about children earlier in our work. And so we, in all aspects of our work, we're thinking about children and how they are affected. Whether it's our child support cases or parenting time cases, or, like I said, trying to prevent a mother from being thrown into jail, or allowing her to have money to feed her kids instead of paying these outrageous fines. So there's always a small child's face behind all of these systemic oppressions and barriers that we put in front of people. So maybe if people can just think of that see the humanity in your brother, your neighbor, and see yourself, see a child, and we're trying to build that better future, like Rubina said, because what is this world? What are we leaving to our kids? And we want to be able to leave something beautiful for them. So can we tear down everything that does not serve us and build up, invest in our schools, public health, employment, parks and recs, places for them to play? Can we invest in these things as opposed to a militarized police force? It doesn't take that much to get on board. And so we just want a better place to live for all people.
Well, that sounds cool. I mean, I like better, and as a parent, I think we're all parents, and ironic, somehow we all have 2 kids. Like, how did that happen?
Very ironic. But, yes, the universe has brought us all together.
Yeah, we were all believing we should replace ourselves, right? Like that idea. But I think the point that you make was well made about thinking about policies for children, but also recognizing that policies that do not serve parents do not serve children. And so as we talk about kind of the ways that people can get involved in the work that you're doing, how do people support, 1, the work that you're doing, and 2, engage themselves in the movements that you are supporting and providing, service to?
Yeah, so I think Rubina hit it on the head. Like, please, we need this grassroots movement to be as big as possible. So you can find local orgs, whether if you're in Detroit, Michigan Live, Detroit Action, Moratorium Now. There are a lot of grassroots orgs that are doing work. Detroit Will Breathe led, I can't remember how many days in the streets of marching and protest, right? Even if you don't want to be like an official member of something, just come out to the event, come out to the streets. That's how you show your support. And then more than that, as Rubina said, target a specific actor. Is it your mayor, your city council, the prosecutors, the judges? Target them and say, hey, I just learned about all, this cycle of folks getting trapped. What are you doing? What is your stance? Push them. And we always encourage folks to come to our website. We will be putting out a toolkit.
And your website is?
Again, DetroitJustice.org.
Right.
But we have the highway robbery report on there, but we also have a lot of resources about restorative justice. We have a link to the Metro Detroit Restorative Justice Network, where if someone does encounter some harm and they're looking for a restorative justice practitioner, that can be a hub where you can go there to find resources and someone to, come to the community and help you. And then we have a great development team that loves to get resources from folks, whether that's money or time. We're trying to build up a pro bono practice. If there's any other lawyers that's stuck in a firm and they envy what we're doing, we would love to use your resources and your help. But money is always a good way to donate and help us continue to do the work that we're doing, in addition to getting out in the streets. But I do want to employ folks to go to our website, get those toolkits, call up your city council people, call up, the mayor, whoever, and say, hey, these are some issues that I found here on this website that says that you can course correct right now, today, Adam. We're not talking about decades, years of work. Things can be done by a stroke of a pen, and it just takes the people being knowledgeable about it first and then rising up to action. And so that's what we really like to just leave people with, is do not feel helpless. I'm invigorated. It's not a hopeless situation. I'm excited about this new society that we're going to build up, that our kids can play in without being feared of being shot down by a cop or being pulled over for driving while Black. And all it takes is the masses to get together and create that change. So please, please follow us on Twitter, on Instagram. Adam, you may be our first TikTok dance thing. Look, I don't know what it is, but if you want to work with us, will you do it?
I'm not actually even on the TikTok, and I have no dance moves, so probably not gonna be. You know what though? If y'all get on TikTok and I can be helpful, I'm happy to dance extremely poorly with you for a silly video.
Thank you.
Although expect it to be very poor, like very poor moves, like how you would expect your dad to do the new thing and do poorly at that. So,
but look, as long as we're all willing to be vulnerable, I think that's a good thing. That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, I got no shame.
There you go. Just put yourself out there. And that's what we want your listeners to do. This may be a new area that you're learning about today: restorative justice, transformative justice. Go to our website, read some resources. Let's all get educated so we can transform our current society. So, yeah,
awesome.
We're excited.
Well, I always ask all of my guests what their, two questions before I let them escape, which is one, what are you doing to maintain your physical health? And two, what are you doing for your mental health? Both things I think have seen people have had incredible challenges with during the pandemic, where, we've been isolated, and the things that we used to do to stay active, maybe we aren't doing. So Nancy, Rubina, does anybody want to go first?
I'll go first. As for mental health, I have chronic depression and anxiety, and I'm not ashamed to say that I see a therapist and have for years. I also take medication. I know some people have things, some qualms about medication, but I can say that, antidepressants, anti-anxieties really do help. They help you function. They help you, have some clarity. Physical health, I'm working on. Nancy knows, we've talked about it, like she's my little cheerleader.
That's up. I would like to cheer too. See,
thank you. But I'm a work in progress, but I believe
we all are.
I do know the pandemic did really, for people feeling isolated and things like that, don't hesitate to ask for help. Don't hesitate to ask your friends. We do care about you. We're here for you. And, even if you don't feel that you're ready for therapy or whatever, remember that self-care is important. Take care of yourself so you can take care of others.
Rubina, I really appreciate you sharing. You may not know this, but my wife's a clinical psychologist, so we are firm believers in therapy. Also, the idea that people feel concerned about needing help managing that part. Like, no one's like, oh, feels guilty about going to the doctor because you're bleeding and your arm is falling. Like, no one feels guilty about that. We shouldn't feel guilty about, having other issues or dealing with other things. We're all dealing with something,
right?
Unless you're a sociopath, and then, yikes. But nonetheless, thank you for sharing. Thanks for those kind of things. And similarly with physical health, it's always a work in progress, and we're all trying to find something that works for us. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely. Thank you, Rubina. And as Rubina alluded to, I try to have accountability, right? So I try to have folks who will say, hey, Nancy, have you worked out today? Have you done X, Y, Z? And I try to be that for other people as well. So I think everyone needs little coaches, be it for mental health or physical health. But I have not been as active as I wanted to, but I do still like to call myself an athlete. My husband may differ with that adjective, but but I like to play basketball. That's my thing, and so I have my hoop. And Are you
good?
I'm pretty good. I'm not gonna, I'm not shy about it. I have a jumper, so that's my my weapon of choice. But
did you play basketball competitively, Nancy?
I did not. So I went to University of Michigan for undergrad, and I had this whole thing about how I was going to walk onto the team. I was going to try out. I was going to become a starter. Like, I made it all up in my head, right? I got into the open gym tryouts, and this is probably, if I ever have one regret, this was it. And those girls, Adam, they were twice my size. I am 5'2" on a good day. And I just chickened out. Their height was overbearing. It was like 6 foot average, and I'm a measly 5'2". But because of that, I played IM in law school and at Michigan. So I have a couple IM trophies that I'm very proud of. You know what I mean? I won at that level.
So for people who don't know, your IM is intramural.
Intramural sports at the collegiate and graduate level. And so I still keep that with me. So you'll see me in my driveway doing suicides, up and down my driveway every day doing suicides. We have the hoop in the back. The girls are still little, but we're practicing with them as well. So I love being active.
That's what's up.
Yeah, so that it keeps my mind right. And that's why I always tell Rubina as well, like, let's just get out and go for a walk, because it'll also help us feel good. And so, for mental health, I am a work in progress. We recently have some teleservices that our org was so graciously amended our benefits to allow us to access. And so I'm looking forward to engaging in that teletherapy. But in the meantime, I'm really trying to do what our ED, Amanda Alexander, recently told us that she did, is take a tech Sabbath. And so I'm trying to put down the phone, put down the computer, and just be, whether that's playing with my kids, which brings me joy, or just going for a walk. I'm trying to just put down all the noise, because that, when I find out something happened, this person was killed, this person, I go crazy, right? Not literally, but I can't rest well. My spirit is now upset, and I'm finding I need to calm my spirit. I need to be able to be at peace in an unpeaceful world. And so I'm really trying to be intentional about this tech Sabbath. And so that's what I've been working on it. So work in progress.
Hey, I hear you. I am in the Army, so I need to run. I'm not naturally a runner, even though I ran track in high school and college. Not a distance runner, right? I was a sprinter. I was a hurdler, but I run my kids to daycare in the morning. So it's a 1.5 miles there, it's a 1.5 miles back. My first run this season was at the 29 minutes. I was at just over 21. So dropped 8 minutes and 3
Nice.
miles.
Oh,
very impressive.
But it's not like I was not trying to get, like, it was not like a goal, you know, like the goal of mine was like, hey man, maybe if I get to 21 now, I'd really be cooking. I'd be feeling so good about it. But the other day it was just like, just steady improvement, not because I'm like doing all of these other things. I don't even like to run as much as I like to work out, like, and lift heavy things. But some days I'm just like, well, you know, I run the kids to daycare. It's like, I run them to daycare. And so my wife focuses on behavior change and talks about how so much of what is important if you're trying to change the behavior is it is an identity thing. So if your identity is you don't like working out or you don't whatever, then you're like, oh, it's a struggle. But if your identity is you get up and you go walk, like you know, that is who you are. You do these things, right? So the two of you fight for justice. You take care of people. You are thinking about how to make sure that people who otherwise the system is not taking care of, you do that. That is your energy. That is your judge. That is when Nancy is like, yeah, I am. Rubina's like, hey, I have a, Nancy's like, so, and you know, right? Like
it's true.
That's the thing that gives you your life, right? Like people who are like, oh, I'm not a morning person. No, you're not a morning person. I, on the other hand, leap out of bed like, you know, the beginning of The Lion King when the sun is coming and all the things. That's me every morning. I'm like, and the world is happening. I'm excited. But that's because, you know, that's how I view the world. And I think so much of how we view everything we do starts with how we view it. And, you know, so as we're talking about that behavior change, we're talking about our mental health, it's so important to have people in our life who can be that light. So I'm really glad that you two have each other and that as a community, we have people like you who are advocating not just for individuals who need help, but to make sure that the system swallows less of them whole. And those that have been affected by it are able to come back into the space. And so, you know, we're really grateful to have you. We look forward to doing more with you. I'm currently working, you two are probably the only two people that would appreciate this. So I had a conversation with the Chief Justice of the Michigan Supreme Court a couple of years ago, because I'm on their budget, and talking about how I've never had jury duty and how it grinds my gears because I'll be a very good juror. Like I will be, you know, paying attention. I take this thing seriously, you know, whatever. Never been in the pool. And so she also had never been. And so I've been working over the last couple of months with prosecutors and some judges and some attorneys, and I guess we'll invite you about this jury task force to try and make jury trials more fair. And, you know, we started with, well, what is the pool like? And the first thing that we all agreed on was formerly incarcerated individuals should be able to serve on juries. They currently can't, right? And, you know, we talked to a number of prosecutors and they were like, yeah, people who were formerly incarcerated are some of my best jurors. And we're like, so they're not actually allowed to be on juries. And they're like, really? And these, you know, some of these are white people from like random places in the state. So it's not like, you know, these are, you know, it was not a political thing, right? Like legitimately, they were like, well, I had a guy who was previously incarcerated and he was one of the best jurors I ever had. It's like, well, you know, that's not really a thing. But, and so having these discussions and working through it. And so I was telling you I had really good news, but about last week, I was like, I got mail. I got jury summons. So I'm super excited. You know, the end of the month, I'll get to find out if I actually am showing up or not. But I feel like that's progress. And my wife is like, you, only person in the world who is like doing social media posts, excited about jury duty. I'm like, I'm so excited.
Thank you so much, Adam, because you hit on it right there, because it's been made just in society as something that you should skirt and not take seriously. I always wanted to be on the jury, but when I was in law school, they didn't call me, probably because they knew I knew too much. But this is a civic engagement, civic duty that citizens should really, and Black folks particularly, should really look to be on, because we know the racial disparities and then what the outcome is. And so I want more folks posting on social that, hey, I got my jury summons, I'm excited, because this is something that we need. And you are in that wave, you're starting a movement right now. But I'm very excited that you shared that with us. Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I mean, I'll probably get dismissed immediately, but
hey, look,
they're like, sorry, They're like, sorry, sir, you wanted too much. I was like, just wait till I get these challenges thing figured out. You're gonna have to get rid of me for cause, you know, like.
But your excitement is real. That's how every Detroiter, anyone should be excited when they get that song, especially
like I am. Like I got it and was like, honey, she's working, she's me. I was like, honey, oh, okay. Hey, I want to tell you. She's like, okay, what do you have to tell me? And I was like, so, but I know that's
no, you're ending on a high note, Adam. I love it.
Yeah. So I appreciate you all coming on. This has been the We Can Do Better podcast. It was a pleasure having you, Rubina and Nancy from the Detroit Justice Center. I'm sure we'll do more with you, and I hope that you got some time. Maybe we'll get you to come out to our Eastside family reunion. It's going to be wicked fun. August 14th over at Pershing High School. We're going to give away food and fun and do all kinds of things and have vendors and like all the inflatable actions. So Rubina, if you want to come get some of that outside physical activity, you can come like bounce race Nancy and like do, you know, kind of these things. So, you know, maybe that'll be your first TikTok. We'll be doing inflatable. Now I'm good at inflatable things like running and jumping and bouncing. I'm your guy. I'm in there.
All right. Well, we're excited. Thank you so much for having us, Adam. We appreciate it. This is a great conversation.
Thank you.
Awesome. So again, this has been Senator Adam Hollier. This is the We Can Do Better podcast, where we talk to people who are doing incredible work in Michigan, across the 2nd Senate District, and just giving them an opportunity to tell you the work that they're doing and how you can get engaged. If you know someone who we should feature or would like to hear from, please let us know. Have a great one.